Imagine you're a nurse, right, working a 12-hour shift in this chaotic, just incredibly noisy emergency room.
Oh, that is a high-stress environment.
Exactly. Monitors are blaring everywhere, multiple conversations are happening at once, and a doctor across the station yells out a verbal order for medication to rapidly lower a patient's spiking blood pressure.
Right.
So you turn to the medication cabinet. But because the English language is uniquely messy, a single misheard vowel in that chaotic moment could be the difference between pulling a mild antihistamine for anxiety and a potent drug that alters cardiovascular function.
Yeah, it could literally be the difference between saving a patient and causing a catastrophic medical error.
It's wild.
It is a terrifying reality, honestly. I mean, we expect clinical environments to operate with mathematical precision, but the primary tool we use to communicate in those environments, the English language, is inherently full of tracks.
Yeah.
A dropped letter or, a misheard syllable doesn't just result in a typo. It alters physical reality.
And that is our mission today. We're going to unpack the confusing, highly debated, and sometimes incredibly high-stakes world of words that sound or look the same.
It's a huge topic.
It really is.
Yeah.
And if you are currently cramming for a TEAS or HESI nursing entrance exam, this is exactly why this topic is tested so relentless.
Absolutely.
But even if you aren't in healthcare, if you are just insanely curious about the quirks of our language, we are tracing this whole phenomenon from ancient Greek philosophy through the accidental collisions of history all the way to modern hospital medication errors.
We have a really fascinating stack of sources to pull from today, too.
We do.
We're looking at deep dive grammar texts, historical linguistic debates, and some very sobering safety alerts from medical institutes. It really forces us to look closely at how our brains process information under pressure.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can figure out why these words trick our brains and cause real-world errors, we need to strip them down to their basic building blocks, which are sound and spelling. Because it seems like the fundamental problem is that English just refuses to keep those two things aligned.
That is the perfect starting point. I mean, if we look at language from first principles, every spoken or written word relies on two core axes. You have its phonology, which is how it sounds, and its orthography, which is how it's spelled.
Okay.
The chaos you mentioned in the ER happens because over centuries of shifting pronunciations and stubbornly frozen spellings, English words often match on just one of those axes, or both of them, or neither.
Right, because our spelling system basically got locked in place by early printing presses a few hundred years ago, but we just kept changing how we actually pronounce the vowels in our mouths.
Yeah, exactly. Which leaves us with three distinct categories of lexical ambiguity. The first one, and the one that haunts every grammar test, is the homophone.
The classic homophone.
Right. These are words that share the same sound but have entirely different spellings and entirely different meanings.
Like the classic there, and there.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like we all get that drilled into our heads in grade school, so we can probably skip past those basics. But looking at the exam prep materials in our sources, the stakes get much higher with words like patience and patience.
Yes, let's look at the mechanics of that pair, because it's a great example. You have patience ending in a nearly silent CE, representing the virtue of remaining calm.
Right, having patience.
And then you have patience ending in a hard TS, representing a room full of sick people. When spoken quickly, the phonetic delivery is just identical.
It really is.
But mentally, you are leaping across a massive semantic canyon. I mean, a single missing letter transforms a human virtue into a physical noun.
And what's wild is that our digital safety nets are completely blind to that canyon.
Oh, completely.
Like, autocorrect just sits there happily letting you make the mistake, because both strings of letters are technically valid dictionary entries.
Yeah, autocorrect lacks contextual awareness. It cannot tell if you are testing your virtue or testing a room of people.
That's so true.
Another exam-heavy pair that functions similarly is affect with an A and affect with an E.
Oh, people mess that one up all the time.
All the time. In very formal, hyper-articulated speech, the vowel sounds might differ slightly. But in the reality of rapid, everyday conversation, they function purely as homophones, forcing the listener to rely entirely on context to know if you mean the verb or the noun.
So if homophones deceive our ears by sounding the same, the second category deceives our eyes, right?
Yes. That brings us to homographs. These share the exact same spelling, but the meaning varies. And crucially, the sound can vary too.
Oh, okay.
Take the word lead, spelled L-E-A-D. It can be the heavy metal, rhyming with bed, or it can be the action of guiding someone, rhyming with bead.
Okay, I think I need an analogy to conceptualize this mechanism.
Sure.
So homophones are like strangers who happen to wear the exact same outfit, while homographs are like twins who look identical but act completely differently.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. I mean, your brain has to basically switch operating systems based on the surrounding sentence to process the exact same physical input. And when a homograph requires that complete change in pronunciation, like the two versions of lead or bow at the waist, versus shooting a bow and arrow, linguists give it a subcategory name, which is a heteronym.
Heteronym, got it.
Yeah.
So every heteronym is a homograph, but not every homograph is a heteronym.
Correct. Because you also have strict homonyms. This is the third category.
Okay, lay it on me.
This is where words share the same spelling and the same sound, but have completely unrelated meanings.
Wait, same sound and spelling?
Yeah. Think of the flying mammal bat and the baseball equipment bat. Identical hardware, identical sound, totally different meaning.
Honestly, it's a massive cognitive load. I'm looking at a drill case from one of the HESI nursing exam prep books here, and it asks the test taker to differentiate between peak with an EA, peak with an EE, and peak with an IQE.
The dreaded triple.
It's brutal.
It is. Think about what is happening in your brain when you encounter that in a sentence like, her interest was piqued by the peak of the mountains, so she took a peek.
My brain just short circuits. I can't even picture it.
It's an intentional stress test. Auditorily, you are receiving one uniform sound 3 times in a row. But to pass that exam, your working memory has to successfully juggle 3 distinct orthographic spellings and map them to 3 completely unrelated definitions simultaneously.
Juggling is the perfect word for it. But, keeping track of all these subcategories, homophones, homographs, heteronyms, strict homonyms, it feels incredibly tedious.
It does.
Like, why do we need this massive taxonomy just to say, hey, these words are confusable? It feels like modern academic torture.
Got that.
But checking the historical texts in our sources, it turns out people have been arguing about this for over 2 millennia.
They really have. In fact, the origin of this entire framework goes all the way back to Aristotle, around 350 BCE, in his famous treatise called Categories.
Wait, Aristotle was worried about ancient Greek spelling tests.
Not in the slightest. He wasn't doing linguistics or grammar at all. He was doing pure logic and metaphysics.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he introduced the concept of homonymia, which translates to same name, but he applied it to physical things in the world, not to the words on a page.
Oh, I see.
His famous example contrasted a living, breathing man with a painted portrait of a man. In ancient Greek, you could technically point to both of those things and use the broad term zoochon, or animal.
Ah, I see where this is going. If you aren't carefully separating the physical reality from the label, you step right into a trap.
Exactly.
You might logically deduce, well, all animals breathe. That painting on the wall is an animal. Therefore, the painting on the wall breathes.
And your entire logical syllogism quietly derails. For Aristotle, homonymia was a warning system against careless reasoning. He wanted philosophers to realize that a single term was masking 2 fundamentally different realities.
That makes a lot of sense.
It wasn't until much later, as grammar and philology slowly broke away from philosophy, that the focus shifted from things that share a name to words that share a form.
So when did this shift into the modern grammar headache we are dealing with today?
That happened in the 19th century, during the explosion of historical linguistics. Scholars like the Grimm brothers, who were meticulously tracing how vowel sounds mutated across ancient Germanic tribes, they needed precise tools.
Right.
This is when terms like homophone and homograph locked into their technical definitions based on Greek roots. So you have homos for same, phone for sound, and grapheme for writing.
Okay, that tracks.
What's fascinating here is that this created a massive schism in the field that still exists today.
Really, a schism over homophones.
Oh, yeah. If you talk to strict academic linguists, they demand those absolute clinical boundaries. But if you talk to lexicographers, the people actually writing dictionaries for everyday public use, they often just throw their hands up and lump all these confusable words under the single broad umbrella of homonyms.
Okay, I have to push back on behalf of the listener here.
Go for it.
Is the lexicographer approach just sloppy? Or do we actually need 3 different academic terms for this in everyday life? I mean, if I'm firing off a crucial email to my boss and I use the wrong there, I really don't care if it was a homograph or a homophone.
Right.
I just care that I look foolish. Why not just call them all confusables?
It is entirely practical for the average person to just call them confusables. The lexicographers aren't being sloppy. They're reflecting how humans actually experience the frustration.
Yeah.
But the reason linguists defend those strict boundaries to the death is because those boundaries are the only way to uncover mind-blowing historical secrets about how our language was built.
Okay, so the pedantry actually serves a purpose. How so?
It leads us into one of the liveliest debates in semantics, which is distinguishing between homonymy and polysemy.
Polysemy.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. What's the mechanism there?
So in 1977, the linguist John Lyons formalized this in his book, Semantics. Polysemy is when a single word expands into multiple related meanings over time, but they all share one original etymological root. Let's look at the word head. You have the head on your shoulders, the head of a corporation, the head of a nail, the head of a river. All of those concepts branch out from the core idea of the topmost or leading part.
So to use an analogy, polysemy is like a massive family tree. The head of a nail and the head of a CEO are distant cousins, but they share the exact same linguistic DNA.
Precisely. True, strict homonymy, however, requires a historical accident.
An accident.
Yeah, it means two words arose completely independently in different parts of the world and only collided later because of a random phonetic or spelling mutation over centuries.
Well, polysemy makes logical sense. But you mentioned historical accidents. And looking at my notes, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
There's a famous example in the linguistic sources about the word bank.
Yes.
I always assumed the financial institution and the side of a river had some deep poetic connection. Like early merchants counted their gold by the water.
Most fluent English speakers make that exact assumption. Your brain naturally craves a logical connection. But there is zero shared history. They are true, strict homonyms.
That is so weird.
The origin of riverbank traces back to an ancient Old Norse and Germanic word, baki, which simply meant a natural ridge or a shelf of earth.
Okay, so the Norse baki eventually softens into bank. But where does the financial one come from?
It descends from the Italian word banca, which literally meant bench or counter.
Wait, like a place to sit.
Yes. It referred to the physical wooden benches that early Renaissance moneylenders would sit behind in the busy Italian marketplaces to conduct their exchanges.
That is wild. They have absolutely nothing to do with each other.
Nothing at all. Over hundreds of years, the Norse ridge of dirt and the Italian wooden bench independently evolved. They migrated through different cultures, shifted in pronunciation, and slammed into the exact same English spelling and sound, B-A-N-K. Pure random coincidence.
So unlike the family tree of polysemy, true, strict homonymy is like two totally unrelated strangers who happen to have the exact same name crashing into each other at a four-way intersection.
That's a great way to picture it. And because English is full of these historical collisions, our reliance on sound-alike words creates some fantastic linguistic failures.
Oh, I bet.
One of the most famous in literature is the malapropism.
Oh, this is a fun one. Named after Mrs. Malaprops from the 1775 play The Rivals, right?
Yes, Richard Brinsley Sheridan's character. She desperately wants to sound sophisticated, but her brain constantly retrieves the wrong, similar-sounding word. She famously describes someone as being as headstrong as an allegory on the banks of the Nile.
An allegory on the Nile, when she clearly meant alligator. That's amazing.
It's brilliant writing.
But a malapropism is a near miss, right? It's not a true homophone.
Exactly. Allegory and alligator share a rhythmic structure and starting vowels, but they don't sound identical. A true homophone error, like typing there instead of there, is a perfect, seamless phonetic match.
Which brings up a huge point. If these words are historical accidents that sound absolutely identical, it makes total sense that we mess them up.
It does.
But I think there is a lot of deep, unwarranted shame around this. Why do highly educated people, like people with advanced degrees and massive vocabularies, constantly make homophone errors when they're typing an email?
We really need to debunk this misconception. Mixing up homophones does not signal carelessness, and it certainly does not reflect low literacy.
That's a relief to hear.
What it actually reveals is a fascinating mechanical mismatch in how your brain processes language under time pressure.
Okay, tell me more.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of cognitive fluency, your brain uses two entirely different retrieval systems when you write. First, you have phonological retrieval, which is your brain digging up how a word sounds.
Right.
Second, you have orthographic retrieval, which is your brain figuring out how to sequence the physical letters on the page.
Wait, so you're telling me my brain is actually too fast for its own good? It's finding the audio file of the word before the spelling department even has time to catch up.
That is exactly what happens. When you are a highly skilled, fluent writer typing at full speed, your phonological retrieval is blindingly fast.
Oh, wow.
It grabs the sound there, and before the slower analytical part of your brain can verify the grammatical context, your motor cortex just executes the most heavily worn neural pathway. It outputs the most common spelling, T-H-E-R-E.
And people assume a spell checker will save them from that fast brain.
That is the second major misconception. A spell checker is just a database lookup tool. It only verifies if a string of characters exists.
Right.
If you type "the patients in the waiting room tested my patients" and you flip the spellings, the software sees 2 valid dictionary entries and gives you a green check mark. Only a human analyzing the semantic context can catch that error.
So our fast brains are constantly trying to optimize, grabbing whatever sounds right. But what happens when the meaning of the word itself starts drifting over time?
Oh, you mean the neighboring terms?
Yeah, the source material details a whole neighborhood of these linguistic traps. Like, what about capitonyms?
Capitonyms, like Polish and Polish. Capitalizing the word completely changes the sound and the meaning.
Yeah, that's tricky. And then there are contronyms.
Yes, also known as autoantonyms. These are single words that have evolved to hold 2 completely opposite meanings simultaneously. It happens through a process called semantic drift.
Give me an example of the mechanics of that. How does a word become its own opposite?
Let's trace the word sanction. Originally, in early history, a sanction was a holy decree or a sacred law. Over time, that meaning drifted slightly to mean giving official permission or approval for something.
Okay, that makes sense.
But simultaneously, a different branch of meaning drifted toward the penalty for violating that sacred law.
Oh, easy.
So today, you can sanction an event, meaning you sponsor and approve it, or the government can place a sanction on a country, meaning they are heavily penalizing it.
That feels like a massive design flaw in the language. You have to rely 100% on the surrounding sentence to know if you are being rewarded or punished.
Context is everything.
Yeah.
Another great one is cleave. You can cleave a block of wood apart with an axe, or a child can cleave tightly to their mother.
Wow, those are exact opposites.
In that case, it was actually 2 entirely different Old English words, cleophan meaning to split, and cliffian meaning to adhere, that just phonetically collapsed into the same modern spelling.
Unbelievable. So our eyes deceive us, and semantic drift confuses us. But what about when our ears fail us entirely, like in a loud room? The sources talk about eggcorns.
The eggcorn is a brilliant auditory phenomenon. It was coined by linguist Jeffrey Pullum in 2003. It happens when someone mishears a common phrase, but their brain immediately fills in the gap with a substitution that actually makes logical, semantic sense.
Like what?
The namesake example is someone writing eggcorn instead of acorn.
Eggcorn.
Yeah, if you've never seen the word written down and you hear it in passing, your brain analyzes the object. An acorn is shaped somewhat like an egg, and it contains a seed, much like a kernel of corn. So eggcorn feels entirely plausible to the person who misheard it.
I love that. The brain refuses to leave a blank space, so it invents a logical narrative to explain the noise. And that relates to mondegreens too, right?
Very similar mechanism, but monogreens usually apply to misheard song lyrics or poetry. The writer Sylvia Wright coined it in 1954.
What's the story there?
She grew up listening to a Scottish ballad that ended with the line, "and laid him on the green." But her brain forced a different narrative onto the auditory input, and for years she thought the lyric was, "and Lady Mondegreen."
And Lady Mondegreen. It's
Yeah.
hilarious when we do it in the car, singing along to the radio.
Yeah.
Our fast brains are just desperately trying to make sense of the noise. But I want to pivot here, because it's funny to mishear a lyric or accidentally type eggcorn in a text message. But if your brain is forcing a narrative onto noise in an emergency room, that fast retrieval mechanism is terrifying.
It truly is.
We have to talk about the real-world stakes in healthcare.
This brings us full circle to why this is tested so heavily for incoming nurses. It is not about grammar pedantry. It is about patient safety. The Institute for Safe Medication Practices, the ISMP, issues constant critical alerts about SELA drugs.
SELA.
That stands for sound-alike, look-alike medications.
So this is homophony and lexical ambiguity playing out with life or death consequences.
Exactly. Let's look at the systemic conditions in a hospital. You have alarm fatigue, doctors scribbling on charts with notoriously bad handwriting, and verbal orders being shouted across noisy nurses' stations.
The recipe for disaster.
It is. Under that intense cognitive load, the brain defaults to its fastest phonological pathway. Take the drugs hydroxyzine and idelizine. One is an antihistamine often used to calm mild anxiety. The other is a potent vasodilator used to rapidly drop blood pressure. They look almost identical at a quick glance and sound nearly identical when spoken.
Oh, man. Or the nightmare trio mentioned in the ISMP alerts, Celebrex, Cerebix, and Celexa.
An anti-inflammatory, an anticonvulsant for seizures, and an antidepressant. If a tired clinician's fast phonological retrieval grabs the wrong word out of that lineup of soundalikes, the wrong chemical enters the patient's bloodstream.
That is just terrifying.
This raises an important question. How do healthcare professionals systematically mitigate these deeply ingrained linguistic traps that our human brains are naturally wired to fall into?
It changes the entire perspective on exam prep. It completely shifts homophones from being a frustrating spelling quiz into a vital safety protocol.
It really does.
Like, when a nursing exam tests you on affect versus effect, they don't actually care if you know the dictionary definition.
Yeah.
They are testing your cognitive discipline. They are forcing you to practice overriding your brain's fast phonological retrieval and engaging your slow, deliberate contextual analysis.
Well said.
Because precision with words is precision with care. If you can build the cognitive muscle to catch the missing CE in patients on a test, you are building the exact muscle needed to catch the difference between Celebrex and Cerebix on a patient's chart at 2 a.m.
That is the exact transferable skill. You cannot trust your ears alone, and you cannot trust the first word your fast brain retrieves. You have to verify the orthography against the clinical context every single time.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with Aristotle using the concept of same names to warn philosophers about the traps of careless logic.
Right.
We traced the accidental historical collisions of language, like Italian marketplace benches and Norse dirt ridges mutating over centuries to form the identical word bank.
Which is still crazy to think about.
We broke down the mechanics of why your highly literate brain outpaces your spell checker, grabbing sounds faster than spellings. And we saw how a harmless auditory gap, the kind that makes you hear eggcorn or Lady Mondegreen, turns into a critical life-or-death vulnerability in a clinical setting with sound-alike, look-alike drugs.
It really illuminates the fact that the English language is not a perfectly engineered tool. It is a messy, evolving historical ecosystem that we have to navigate with extreme caution.
It absolutely is. And that leaves me with one final provocative thought for you to mull over after we sign off.
Let's hear it.
We've learned that English suffers from all these confusable words because our spelling system froze in place while our human pronunciations kept shifting over the centuries. But what happens next? As we rely more and more on voice-to-text algorithms, smart speakers, and AI dictation to communicate for us, will that technology eventually force the English language to adapt?
Oh, that's a good question.
Will we eventually start spelling words exactly as the AI hears them, wiping out historical homophones forever? Or will our digital assistants simply misunderstand our messy human voices and create an entirely new class of digital mondegreens that we can't even predict yet? Definitely something to ponder the next time autocorrect tries to completely change the meaning of your text message.
I love that thought.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden traps of the English language. Whether you're heading into a nursing exam or a chaotic hospital shift, stay sharp, slow down, and watch your words.
Thanks for listening.